welcome to this podcast. My name is Beth Fisher at Bridging Commercial Magazine, and today we have
Alex Williams.
And tell me about the company you work for and give me a quick elevator pitch.
Mm-hmm. So I work for a company called Pilotfish. I head up the property finance department there. We do everything commercial finance related, so bridging, development, commercial mortgages. I specialise in the bridging and development side, anywhere from about 500,000 up to 25 million. And again, work with first-time developers all the way up to the seasoned professionals.
Amazing. And how long have you been there for?
I've been there literally 2 years next week.
Right, okay, awesome. And how did you get into the industry?
I actually started off working at Handelsbanken before I joined Pilotfish on a graduate scheme, and wanted to get out from behind the desk, realised that banking wasn't necessarily for me, but still had a real interest in the finance sector.
Sure.
So started looking for jobs that were relatively local to me as well, and Pilotfish popped up, and the job just clicked, the description of the job. And then when I went to meet the team again, the team just felt like something that I would like to work with. So moved into the brokering side.
How big is the company?
We've got 10 members of staff now, looking for another 2 in the new year. So all of our growth is quite organic. We do it on a demand basis. So as and when we grow and increase our workload, we'll then look for that other member of staff to help assist with that increased workload.
Nice. Would you ever say that, do you have a mentor or anyone that you look up to? We've asked everyone today if they have anyone in the market which they really aspire to.
So I think there's a whole mix of people, and you can learn things from everybody out there. So my managing director is excellent in the liaising with clients aspect. He's finance director by trade. He's really, really switched on. So there is a whole host of information that you can kind of draw from him. But there are other people doing amazing things in the industry, people that are doing a lot on social media, especially with social media growing in the industry, that you could look up to and take notes from them. And I think everybody should draw from everybody else in the industry, because everybody's doing something well, and just pull in from all of those.
It's all about collaboration in this market as well, and partnerships.
Definitely.
What would your kind of words of wisdom be to anyone who is looking to enter the space, a new broker?
Don't be afraid to work with other people. So a lot of brokers are very protective of their own clients, which is understandable, completely understandable. But there is so much value in building those partnerships, building those relationships, and learning from each other and collaborating, as you just said.
Yeah. And what do you see any kind of major shifts in the market in 2020?
I think that lenders are going to become slightly more cautious in the market. I think there's been a lot of competition, especially in the bridging and development industry, where leverages have been really pushed high, rates have been brought quite low, and I'm not sure there's much more flexibility in that, especially as we're seeing lenders starting to get burnt by their risk-taking in the industry. So I think leverages might rein in, or at least flatten out. And again, I can't see rates dropping much further.
Yeah, I guess there's only so far it can go. And like, is that based on demand though, or is there what other types of innovation as a broker do you think there needs to be in bridging and development space?
I think that there's been a lot of movement to try and make the process more streamlined. A lot of portals being brought in, especially in the bridging market. But I think that people have now actually realised that the key differentiator between bridging providers is customer service. So I think we're actually now starting to go towards the innovation space of improving that customer service, that customer relationship, and the same with the brokers, improving that relationship with the brokers.
Yeah, awesome. If there was one thing you could change in this market, what would you like to see?
I think I would like to see an additional level of regulation. Nothing too onerous, nothing that's going to increase the barriers of entry to unsustainable levels, but something that just makes it a bit more of a level playing field and makes it far fairer for the customer. So,
is this on the lender side or the broker side, or both?
On both sides. As an industry, especially with bridging and development, it is unregulated. You can obviously get some FCA permissions, but they don't really go as far as I'd like to see in terms of regulations. So I'd quite like to see a bit more regulation out there and just level the playing field and worm out some of the more unscrupulous brokers and lenders.
Sure. Do you see that as like a, for example, all brokers having credit broking permissions, for example, rather than full FCA regulation?
I think it completely depends. I mean, credit broking is great, but it only goes so far in terms of what it regulates. Full FCA permissions, again, aren't required, and it's slightly onerous. You have to go through your CMAP and your competent advisor status and things. So it's quite onerous for something that doesn't need to be done. So maybe something more like an industry body with development and bridging that just sets out certain things that do need to be done by the broker to allow them to enter that market.
Sure.
Relatively low, but enough just to ensure that there's some level of kind of maintaining industry standards.
Absolutely. What would you like to see happen for example, on trade bodies? There's been one point that I've heard quite a lot recently about how there needs to be more of like a proper complaints reporting procedure. Do you think a trade body could do that, or does it need to be a completely independent association or organisation?
I think it's a good question to ask. The issue with a trade body is that they could be accused of not being as impartial. If they're representing the brokers or the lenders in the market, the question could be raised as to how impartial they're actually going to be when dealing with a complaint from a consumer, especially as their main focus is to represent the lenders and the brokers in the market.
Yep.
So if there was a way for an industry body to implement some level of complaints procedure whilst remaining impartial and making it clear to the consumer that they're remaining impartial,
Yep.
I think it would work. But whether the consumers could get comfortable with them being impartial whilst there are bodies specifically set up to represent lenders and brokers, I don't know.
Fair enough. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have any questions for me?
Just to say you've done an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Cheers.